We light our chalice to open our reflection today, and as we light this flame, we will hear words from Alice Blair Wesley. We pledge to walk together in the ways of truth and affection. At best we know them now, or may learn them in days to come, that we and our children may be fulfilled, and that we may speak to the world in words of action, of peace, of goodwill. Welcome. Welcome to this, our midweek reflection from the closed Sevenoaks Unitarian Meeting House, closed at this time due to COVID-19. It's our 18th midweek reflection. And over that time, we've seen the news feature, of course, very heavily on the coronavirus, but now it's starting to move across. Our discussions on the street, our movement around people, we're starting to hear stories once more of the wider world. And we see stories of division. We see stories of anger and of disagreement. Not all that. There are many other positive stories too. But there is a growing sense of unease that we've seen, and we could see 6 months ago too. What do we as people of faith, what might we as Unitarians do in our lives to better understand how we might bring wholeness back to ourselves and to others? We'll spend a little time today thinking on those things. Whether this is your first time here or your 18th midweek reflection with us, I bid you a very warm welcome. Our reading today is a piece by the Reverend Dr. Kristen Harper, who is minister to the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Barnstable, Massachusetts. This is a piece called Reformation. Begin again with the Spirit. Some say the spirit of the wind is in the trees. You can see it, they say, if you close your eyes and stand real still. Some say the same spirit lives in the hills, forging mountains and plains. I smelled it the other night. Lying in my bed, my window cracked, it crept through the moonlight, up under my blanket and wrapped its arms around me. Entering my blood through my skin, I felt alive with an age I had not yet reached, made anew again in a form I'd never known. I cried out in pain and joy mingled, fear and expectation. Ecstasy it has been called. I call it Reformation. There was forgiveness in that spirit, compassion for my wounds, strength for my weaknesses. It was no miracle nor nirvana. I just closed my eyes and saw the Spirit. The Spirit in the wind, the Spirit in the trees, the Spirit that lives in me. The words of Kristen Harper. Now, one of the very great advantages of the Unitarian approach to religion and spirituality is its willingness to listen and hopefully learn from different faith traditions. In its recognition of the oneness of humanity and the universe, the connectedness of the oneness of ourselves, our families, our friends, our neighbours and the wider community, our truths are discovered and shaped through the experience of ourselves and others. However, this adaptation of religion, this interpretation of faith, is actually far more widespread than we might sometimes tell ourselves. Now tomorrow, the 23rd of July, is the birthday of Haile Selassie. And this is a day of great celebration in the Rastafarian community, many of whom see Haile Selassie as the second coming of Christ. Not all, but some do. And it was a second coming of Christ bringing liberation to black communities, notably in the Caribbean. Now, the faith tradition formed in the 1930s and was a reaction to the crowning of Haile Selassie as Emperor of Ethiopia. Many saw this coronation as a fulfillment of biblical prophecy in the book of Revelation. Now, there is much debate about whether Haile Selassie ever accepted this conclusion, and he himself remained a member of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Yet this reaching out from primarily Jamaica to seek a new leader, a new spiritual leader, a beacon of hope for the generations of black people seeking a new beginning at that time, a resurrection of their pride and of their status, a hope for the future. Now, Rastafarianism is generally seen as a variation of Protestant Christianity, with significant elements of mysticism. The Bible, preferably the King James Version, is its scripture, and much is made, perhaps quite rightly, of the likely spin placed on translations of the New Testament from the original text by generations of white men. So, there's an understanding of Scripture as an ancient path. And the place of Ethiopia, and Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, the place of Ethiopia in the Christian story is very interesting. Chapter 8 of the book of Acts, Luke's account of the early days of the church, tells of the evangelist Philip and his baptizing of an Ethiopian traveller on the road between Jerusalem and Gaza. Now, this was a traveller who then returned to Ethiopia. This is generally accepted as the very first welcome into the new church by a Gentile, a non-Jew, someone outside the earliest community. Now, whether the writer of the book of Acts saw this as a conversion or as an inclusion is a moot point. And that can sway people's opinion of the act itself. But given that the book was written at the time of Roman occupation of the Holy Land, it may have been a message to the oppressed in Jerusalem, Jews and Christians, that hatred of others, hatred of outsiders, had no basis in religion. All have the opportunity to be welcomed into one family. One. So Christianity in Ethiopia has a long and very important part to play in the Christian church. Yet it is, of course, relatively unheard against the voices from Rome, Moscow, Canterbury, and beyond. Why might that be? Now, the Rastafarian tradition draws on all of this, but places continued importance on interpretation and discerning meaning from Scripture relevant to the plight of the individual and the community. Now, there is a sense of biblical inerrancy in Rastafarianism that I personally find challenging, as I do wherever such an approach is taken by a tradition. But there are many other aspects from which I can learn. Now, those that follow Rastafarianism, Rastas, tend to be mostly vegetarian, peace-loving, prayerful, very meditative, a strong understanding of the need for community, the need for compassion. And the Rastafarian notion of God, or Jah, aligns very closely with those of many Unitarians. Jah, simply a shortened version of the Jewish name for God, or Jehovah. Jah is something immanent. Not only is God seen as creator, but more importantly for me, there is a firm belief that Jah is within each and every person. We are each part of the divine. We each hold an element of awesome beauty. And if God is within every person, there is beauty within every person. And we must recognise the love in all, the shared values of being part of the all that is. We surely cannot hate others. We surely cannot hurt others. We cannot humiliate or belittle others. We are each a part of the divine, and together we are the beauty of creation. Now, our reading earlier from Kristen Harper spoke of finding the Spirit, of taking ourselves into a time of prayer, of mystery, of meditation, allowing the Spirit to enter us and make us new again. She says, there was forgiveness in that Spirit, compassion for my wounds, strength for my weaknesses, and then the Spirit in the wind, the Spirit in the trees, the Spirit that lives in me. Now, I'm not a Rastafarian. There are elements of the approach I cannot agree with. And I cannot in any case claim to know everything about that faith, for many, many reasons. Yet I can be inspired by the Rastafarian ideal of a world free of oppression, where all communities are free to regain their dignity and equity, where centuries of oppression are overturned. A world where we recognise the presence of Jah, of the divine, in every single person. Let us come together now in a time of quiet and of stillness, as we settle our bodies, perhaps closing our eyes, focusing on our breath. We shall hear some words, and I shall strike the singing bowl, and we shall come together in stillness and quiet together. The stillness will be broken by music, and our music is chosen especially for our reflections today. As we become aware of our surroundings, feeling our connection to the place we sit, and its connection to the wider world. With some words from Bob Marley. Life and Jah are the one in the same. Jah is the gift of existence. I am in some way eternal. I will never be duplicated. The singularity of every man and every woman is Jah's gift. What we struggle to make of it is our sole gift to Jah. The process of what that struggle becomes is, in time, the truth. As we extinguish this flame, we pledge to walk together in the ways of truth and affection, as best we know them now or may learn them in days to come, that we and our children may be fulfilled, and that we may speak to the world in words and actions of peace and goodwill.